nothing. It's in front of the thing. Move it over.
It's fine.
There, right there.
Gosh. All right. My name is Sam Moore. May I have permission to record you for this video?
Yes, you do.
All right. May I have your permission to use your first and last name and your image for this project?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Thank you. May I ask your name, occupation, and what city you call home?
My name is Terry Auten. I am a retired professional trainer in the workplace, and I am currently in the retirement business as a jewelry maker.
I didn't know that about you. May I please ask? Oh wait, yeah, that's it. I already said that one. Crap. Now feel free to talk as much. Well, I don't know. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm 77 years old. I am, as I said, in a retirement business right now. I have retired from 2 different careers, one in mental health and one in government service as a trainer. I live in Florida with my wife, both of us in our 70s, and in fair health for my age, and looking forward to this interview.
All right, all right. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling quite well, thank you.
Despite the rain?
Despite the rain, in Florida it rains. If you wait 2 minutes, it'll stop.
All right. All right. So, yeah, but how do you really feel today?
How do I really feel? Well, I worked all day, so I'm a little tired. In a little bit, I'm going to go relax and have supper.
All right.
Then I'm going to do some reading. I feel okay. A little tired.
Okay. I would like to ask you to tell me a story about a difficult time in your life when you received someone else's compassion.
When I received compassion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my. I'm trying to think when someone was compassionate to me. I know I've had several surgeries in a hospital, and I always really felt welcomed and taken care of by the nurses and the nursing staff, the orderlies, and the people that served me my meals. So it was a warm, taken care of feeling. And I don't think they were going through the motions. I think that they were in a career that they really were invested in, and they really cared about how I felt. So I think there was a lot of compassion shown, especially in some of the more serious surgeries I had, where I really had to be watched closely after the surgery and given a lot of help several times to eat and to do things. One time, many years ago, I was afflicted with a disease or a malady called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where I was paralyzed from my neck down for 6 weeks. And the compassion shown by the people in University of Michigan Hospital that took care of me was wonderful. For so long I couldn't move, I couldn't eat, and these people just did everything they could to take care of me until I recovered.
Okay. And when you remember that moment in time, how do you feel about reliving it?
It's a strange thing to relive it because it was a very strange thing to go through when over a period of 3 days I went from having a little stumbling walk to being totally paralyzed from the neck down. Totally painless, but just suddenly over a couple of days losing all of my faculties except my voice, and I lost some of my voice, and you just lose everything. It was scary, but the people that took care of me did a good job of keeping me, going and letting me know that I was going to get better eventually. That we all knew that. It just had to be patient and let it happen.
I presume they're very well trained for that.
They were. That was in the University of Michigan Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and this was in a special neurological specialty unit. Quite remarkably, there were 11 people that had come down with Guillain-Barré within the same time frame. This is something that had never happened before, that 11 people in one geographic area at the same time contracted Guillain-Barré. People flew in from Europe to poke me and prod me and stick me and ask me questions. So I was a guinea pig for a while. We all were. It was just a very remarkable thing to go through. I was very taken care of, and I was afraid at first because I didn't know what was happening. But thinking back to it, it's still a very strange thing to me, the memory of how quickly it happened and all I had to go through to recover from it. It's not an unpleasant memory. It's just it was a very strange time in my life.
All right. So can you tell me this? Can you tell me a story of a time you offered compassion to someone?
When I offered compassion, when I was recovering from the Guillain-Barré, for the first 6 months after I was out of the hospital, I had a lot of problems walking. I had been working for the Department of Social Services at that time, taking care of emergency food needs for indigent families and for travelers. This disease just knocked me right out. I wasn't able to return to an office setting. I couldn't go up and down stairs. My hands were still so non-functioning or limited that I could not use a keyboard. I spent the next year, once I was able to get out and walk, working for a local Baptist church that ran a senior citizen outreach program. And I was, you might say, a companion or a host on a local bus that would pick up senior citizens and take them to doctor's appointments or grocery shopping or to visit with friends or to run errands. We had a driver and I was the greeter. I would open the door for the people and help them in. And then I would use a little step stool to pull myself in. It was quite difficult, but it turned out it was good therapy. I met a lot of very, very wonderful older people. At that time, I was 27 years old. Some of the people I met, I will never ever forget. These were needy people. They were older. They were from a poverty area. One person I helped take care of, both with the bus and kind of as a sideline. He became a bit of a friend to my family and myself. His name was Billy. He had been in his youth a big band member. He had been with the Jimmy Dorsey Band at one time. He was a trumpet player, and he was now in his 80s. He was a very serious alcoholic. He had a lot of health problems, which were made worse by his drinking. He had several local women in the community that were his age that kind of would look in on him and take care of him and try to find the bottles he had stashed and take them away. And he would always find a new place to hide them. He was very totally alone. He had just those local friends, but his family, pretty much he never married, didn't have children or a family. He was pretty much alone. My family and I kind of adopted him. Of course, on the bus rides, we would take him to his doctors and we would take him grocery shopping, help him carry his things into his little apartment. But he was so lonely that at Christmas time, we made sure that we were able to include him in different family things. We would have him over for dinner. We went to a carol sing with him. And I spent many afternoons and evenings with him talking about his older, his previous days when he was in the big band, touring all over the country. He was a very sad person. He regretted and was ashamed of being an alcoholic, and he just couldn't stop. He would try, and then he would fail, and he would feel bad. I spent a lot of time talking with him, trying to console him when he was really down, trying to give him a pep talk to get him up. He was just a very, very nice man. and he was just so lonely. He just sometimes would just cling to us for attention. Um, Even after I left that job as the bus host, I still would look in on him and spend some time with him, and I think it really helped him get through. A little after I went on to another career and didn't see much anymore, I found that he had died about a year after the last time I saw him. But I think that I helped make some of his last days happy. I think I cheered him up a lot. He never really felt in a good laughing mood. Sometimes we really had some fun conversations. He would still play the trumpet, and he was still just as good as he ever was. And he would love to just sit down and play some things for me. And then he played me some records that he had made when he was with some of the big bands. And I think when I spent the time with him, it gave him some happiness toward the end of his life. Another.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so next question. That's a very sweet story. It's good. I mean, like, I've never really heard like, I don't know much about bands and stuff, but, like, I guess he taught you a lot about it. Is there a time you or someone else needed compassion and didn't receive it? Why do you think that is? And why? Like, and I'll ask you later. Why do you think that is?
Well, I don't think that I ever had a time when I needed compassion and didn't receive it. I have known a lot of people over the years that were in very, very sad situations and dire straits and needed help, sometimes for problems that were of their own causing, and were problems that they perpetuated. But yet they still needed some human intervention. They needed someone to prop them up and to help them. The line of work that I did for a long time was working with people on the margins of society, drug addicts, alcoholics, people from Appalachia, especially up in where I lived, who had come up north looking for a better life, but had none of the education or training to really make it financially, and quite often ended up on the welfare rolls. Several times these people really needed, but there was no mechanism in our town other than giving them meal chits or giving them food stamps. There really wasn't anyone, there wasn't family. They were from a group that wasn't widely represented in the area where they lived, so they weren't like folks from back home that they could rely on. A lot of these people were just kind of drifters. They would move from one apartment to another when their funds ran out. Sometimes they would go hungry, and there wasn't anybody right there to help them with a meal or help them with a ride to the doctor. These are people that just kind of survived. And in my capacity where I work, sometimes I could help them. I would get them a meal at a restaurant, or I could get them on a bus somewhere where they needed to go. Quite often I would help people get back down to Kentucky or Tennessee, back to their home country. But by and large, I met a lot of people on that job that just didn't have a support system. They didn't have anybody that really seemed to care. And they were kind of defeated, sometimes bitter. And I feel bad that it wasn't a situation where I could do more.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next question. Is there a time when you wish you would have shown more compassion, but you didn't?
Oh, no. I think if there were times when I dismissed someone that needed a human touch, that wasn't how I was. Quite often, I've been involved with food banks and with senior citizen care and mental health. And a lot of times I just find myself being that person that was a caregiver. In 20 years in the mental health department of Michigan, I worked with a lot of families and a lot of children that had severe emotional and mental problems. And I gave a lot of hugs and I got a lot of hugs. It was just the kind of thing that it was the atmosphere I was in. It was part of the job. I was never discouraged from giving a hug or having someone cry on my shoulder. I was never discouraged from listening to an angry rant where I was the sounding board where somebody just went off in an angry rant about everything was so unfair, and I would not walk away. I would stay there. I would hear it. I would try to be understanding. That was part of the job, and that was kind of how I was. I wasn't going to run from someone that was sad or angry or hurt. And within limits, I did what I could to reach out on the job and both, in the community. Sometimes you can't do much for people. You have to try, and that's how I was.
I see. But there isn't like a single person you can think of, or a single moment?
That didn't get help?
Yeah.
Where
you wish you'd shown more compassion? If not, then we can just move on.
No, I can't think of anyone.
All right then. Do you think compassion is important?
I think it's very important. It's people have got to find a way to touch other people, and you have to find a way to let people touch you. I've met a lot of people that did not want to admit that they needed help, and sometimes it just broke my heart that they just didn't want a hand. They just wanted to be left alone. And I don't think it was a mental problem. I just think that they were bitter and scared, and they were kind of convinced that there wasn't much help. There was one young man that I worked with in the mental health department. He was 16, he was a ward of the state, and he was often quite violent. And one time in trying to control a situation that he was in, he attacked me and injured me quite severely. I was not able to get through to him. After that time, a lot of his problems got focused back on me because I was the one that was there during the big blow up. I was not the cause of his dilemma, but he kind of focused on me, and there was nothing I could say to him or no way I could reach him because he had decided that I was not anyone that he wanted to be around. It made me sad.
Yeah, I'm sorry it turned out that way. I really am.
Yeah, sometimes it does. There are people that, like I say, they've been in a situation for so long that they don't think anybody's going to help, so they don't reach out for help. Some people are so determined that they're going to make it on their own that they would rather eat out of the garbage pail, out of a local dumpster, than ask a stranger for money to get something to eat. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had an awful lot of people ask me for money on the street. And because I've been working in the system for a long time, I usually knew of an alternative. But there's sometimes you can just tell this person is not going to go down to the mission, or they're just not going to go down to the St. Vincent de Paul rescue place. It's like you slip them $5 and tell them, to have a good lunch. You don't really know if they're going to buy something to eat, or some alcohol, or some tobacco, or drugs. But when you give them the money, you don't put conditions on them. It's like, here, I'll try to help you out. I hope you have a good lunch.
Okay.
And you hope they do, but that's not part of the requirement. You give it to them because they ask.
I kind of feel the same way when it comes to giving to the poor. But so how do you think sometimes we show too much compassion, though?
If the compassion is real, no, it's not too much. Compassion means that you're having a strong feeling between you and that person that they have a need that you might be able to meet. And if you feel that their need is something you can meet, how can you say no? But if there's someone that you want to help and they haven't asked, maybe you're imposing your needs on them. So true compassion is when you respond to an invitation for help. Sometimes it's not a verbal thing. Sometimes it's somebody stumbling along that needs a strong shoulder to help them get down to their house. Or maybe you need to reach out and take the keys away from somebody that's going to drive home and they're drunk and falling down. And they can be as mad as can be, but taking the keys away and suffering the verbal abuse when you do it and keeping them from crashing and killing themselves or someone else, that's compassion. You're willing to take their displeasure and their vulgarity, when they're so angry in their drunkenness, you're willing to take that. That's compassion.
Okay, that's a good description. If you were to offer any words of wisdom about compassion, what would they be?
Never think of yourself as compassionate if you're doing out of selfishness. There are some people that like to help whether it's needed or not, and that's their need, that they need to help. Sometimes helping is something you don't want to do. It's inconvenient. It may cost you some money. It's going to cost you time in any case. It may be a person who is not dressed very well and may not be very clean smelling and may have alcohol in their breath. You shouldn't worry about that. Compassion is what is needed for that person, and you choose to do it from yourself. But you don't go out looking to change people. You don't go out looking to chastise people. You don't go out and try to save their soul. You try to take that moment when they have a creature need. They need some food. They need a warm shoulder. They need some warmth, human warmth. They need to know that somebody cares. Maybe just knowing that will help them get through until the next person or agency or whatever can give them more concrete help. But just knowing that somebody